December 4th, 1972, Stephen Stayner was abducted on Highway 140 in the city of Merced by individuals driving an older model white Buick.
And they're driving east towards Yosemite.
Parnell lives most of his life in Yosemite, at the lodge. He kept Stephen in his room for about a week after that.
He kept giving him this cough syrup to sedate him. I think that Parnell felt that the more confused and sedated that he could keep Stephen in for the first several weeks, the better chance he stood to erase his connection back to his own family.
When Stephen didn't make it home from school, his parents immediately were alerted.
Merced was the lead police department, and so they really mounted a large effort to search, and they searched, and there was just nothing there.
It happened here at this corner, and it was such a classic situation, the kind against which parents are constantly warning their children. The next morning, there was an empty desk in the second grade class at Charles Wright School.
When he was missing, it rocked the Stayner family. It hurt the family dynamic, and it crushed Del Stayner.
He just becomes a broken man, really. Kay becomes even more distant, more aloof. She's sort of raising her children almost robotically.
Kay and Delbert became colder to their other children.
Carrie is very upset. I've heard stories about him going out and wishing a star that his brother would come home. Maybe he had some guilt because I believe he was supposed to have been with his brother.
Delbert kind of saw Stephen as his real son, and Carrie kind of felt abandoned, neglected.
A few weeks after he kidnapped Stephen, Parnell pulled up stakes and he started drifting around California. They moved first to Santa Rosa. They would stay in flea-bag motels, a crappy trailer, or a broken down house.
Stephen Stayner had a new father figure, and it was Kenneth Parnell, who by day was his father and by night was his rapist.
Parnell told him that his name was going to be Dennis Parnell, and he enrolled him in school, and the school failed to get the records. Those were the days where you'd get a copy of a record. You know, there was no email.
In the summer of 1976, just a couple of weeks before the bicentennial, it's been 4 years since Stephen was told Ken Parnell is his father. Parnell and Stephen ended up in the little town of Campeche, California, which is in Mendocino County.
Campeche was really tiny. It had maybe a post office and a general store. And he kept him on the grounds in a trailer.
So this is where Ken Parnell used to live many years ago. It's a good place to hide. It's a long ways from anywhere out here.
Nobody knew what was going on behind closed doors, and that this wasn't a father-son at all.
By this time, I'm pretty certain that Parnell felt, I've got him emotionally locked in, so he knew that this kid was going nowhere.
From all outward appearances, he'd adjusted to that new life. There was no school out there, so every day he had to get on a bus and ride for 30 minutes.
This picture, it just describes what he looked like. His personality, his hairdo, his flannel shirt, his smile.
My name is Lori, and Stephen Stayner was my boyfriend in high school. He had a great personality. He was spunky. You could see that he wanted to play and be with kids and be normal. Growing up with him consisted of a lot of fishing, riding bicycles.
He sort of reminded me of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. He had the same haircut and same shaped face even. He made his way into getting into athletics his freshman year of high school. He had a level of maturity to him that most of the kids didn't have. And I think part of that was, you know, he was already smoking cigarettes. A lot of kids had freedom, but not his kind of come and go as he pleased, which makes me wonder, why didn't he just leave?
The answer is that Stephen now has attached to Parnell on some parental level. And that's still his dependency day in and day out for food, clothing. And let's face it, it sounds like Parnell basically let him do whatever he wanted to do as far as drugs, alcohol. And so his comfort level now is set in.
Because of the sexual abuse, I think that played into it too. He knew that that wasn't normal. I don't think he wanted to have other people know about it. In some ways, it was just easier to go along with what was happening to him.
Stephen still has a reality that he has a real family someplace else.
We were walking home and he started crying. He said, I want to go home to my real home. We just let it go. We have been drinking some beer and, you know, kids.
While Stephen is a freshman at Mendocino High School, some 300 miles to the south, his brother Kerry was an upperclassman at Merced High School.
He was Kerry Stayner, the kid who had his brother kidnapped. There was a pall over him.
He actually was voted most creative. Kerry was very well known for his drawings. I think that he was very, very good cartoonist, especially even with the humor. He always wore a hat every time you would see him.
He was wearing the hat because he was compulsively pulling his hair out. Emotionally, Kerry had a tough time during his childhood.
I don't remember Kerry ever having a girlfriend. I never saw him with a girl.
Kerry started acting wildly inappropriately towards females. He exposed himself to one of his sister's friends.
It seemed as though he had a compulsion with trying to get close to women or be sexual with them, but he was unable to develop any sort of interpersonal relationships with any women.
There's a surreal contrast in this. You have one brother who's been subjected to just unspeakable horror for years, but by all appearances, he's a happy-go-lucky, jovial kid with a girlfriend. You have the other brother who's left at home, and it wasn't that he was just a loner, he was a bit of a creepy loner.
So in 1979, Stephen's now 14. He's been with Parnell for 7 years. And Parnell then moves him to a very new remote location. Then he can sort of, in his mind, stay one step in front of law enforcement.
Ken Parnell takes Stephen to this small little town called Manchester, kind of along the coast of Northern California.
Ken is looking for another prepubescent boy. Stephen knew what was going to happen, and Stephen knew that that was wrong.
And he was going to end that.
What Stephen would do in response would make him world famous.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.